welcome to see this council meeting. Let's get it underway. First up is public question time. I don't believe we've got anyone that's public asking. We've just got James Davis and Darren Fairchild for the Armed Forces Day. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, officers and members of the public. Firstly, thank you very much for allowing me, on behalf of the Armed Forces Day Committee, to present this evening. I'm sure you've all seen within your agendas and the report, excellent report done by Darren Fairchild and Rebecca Saunders, with reference to the annual Armed Forces Military Day event. This year's to be held at Beach Lawns over the weekend of the 19th and 20th of June. As stated in the report, the Armed Forces Day has been a long-standing and respected civic event. It's been supported by really strong relationships with veterans, those serving, dignitaries and the public. However, following last year's event, it was deemed there needed to be some change, or changes. The report details a number of strategic alignments, but in my view primary is the Town Council's recent adoption of the Armed Forces Covenant, reinforcing your commitment to serving personnel, reservists, cadets, veterans and their families. The event model has remained largely unchanged for many years, and this has become stale. There has been a decline in footfall, public interest and engagement, not unique solely to Weston-super-Mare, but a decline nonetheless, so change is needed. A fresh approach is required based on asset-based community development, viewing the aforementioned elements, veterans, cadets, families, as key community assets. We aim to spread engagement across the year involving schools, youth services and community organisations. The report that you've got in front of you outlines the proposed plan for 2026 for a one-year refresh next year, but over a three-year plan. It will require perseverance, participation and planning. But by year three, we aim to enjoy an outstanding and inclusive event that we, as a town, can all be proud of. By year three, the event needs to stand as a flagship event in the South West, with a reduction in reliance on the Town Council and a strong community co-ownership. But before I hand over to Darren or to Rebecca to go through the officer's recommendations and for you councillors, I'd like to take the opportunity to add personally, we have always enjoyed a really strong civic support from the Town Council, albeit the same old faces, and I would ask if going forward I could encourage you as councillors to attend the Armed Forces Day event, be seen, be out, be in the public, but to enjoy and support probably the Town Council's biggest event of the year. Thank you.
Right, so that's the end of public participation. Before we go on to the rest of the agenda, my plan is to move item 11, which is the Armed Forces item up to effectively 5A. So everyone happy with that? Lovely. Right. Apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Sheen, Crew, James and Carlton. Any from the floor? Councillor Hawley?
Councillor Canford and Councillor Lambert.
Any others? No. And Councillor Abnett, okay. Any declarations of interest? No. And then item 3 is to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the Town Council meeting held on 24 November 2025. Do I have a proposer?
Can I just make some amendments? It's just an punctuation I can give to the officers afterwards, but it's literally just an extra S, a space, and an extra word, but yeah.
Proposer to accept that, yeah. Seconder? Gibbons. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No. Lovely, that's then passed. Okay, item 4 is to review for amendment to the approved minutes of the Town Council meeting held on 24th March 2025. All relevant information is in your packs. Do I have a proposer?
I'm happy to propose they were accurate, so I don't think they were from the notes I've seen, and happy for those to be corrected. All proposals.
Seconder? John Crawford, and all those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, that's wonderful. Okay, it's just for those who receive the minutes of the Youth Council held in November and December 2025. item 11, that is now going to become 5A. Just a bit further down there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask if I can suspend standing orders briefly so that if anyone wants to ask questions of the two speakers, they can answer them back. Is everybody in favour of that? Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so item 11, I think Councillor Gibbons first.
Yes, thank you. I'll try not to repeat what James Davis has said, but I did write a very similar address to you all. I'm Armed Forces champion, as you know, so I'm really happy to move the officer recommendations on item 11, which set out proposals for the future delivery of Weston-super-Mare's Armed Forces and Emergency Uniformed Services Day. As I said last time when I was bringing the standalone Armed Forces Covenant to the last full council meeting, Weston has a long and proud connection to the Armed Forces. For generations, this town has been a place of service, of training and of remembrance, and many of our residents are veterans, serving personnel or reservists, as well as cadets and their family members. So Armed Forces Day has always been really important for the way the town recognises, embraces and honours that relationship. So the commitment to this is not in question, as you heard. What is before us this evening is how we ensure that this event remains relevant, resilient and meaningful for the future. Following the 2025 event, members did ask for a review of the format, and this wasn't about not respecting the tradition, but about recognising that the event has followed a very similar model for many years and now faces challenges, as we heard earlier. Nationally, armed forces and emergency services are under increasing operational pressure. It's becoming harder to secure large-scale assets, displays, cadet recruitment is challenging, and we've seen declining public engagement of some ceremonial elements. At the same time, delivery costs continue to rise. However, so much remains strong. Your civic support is unwavering, and our relationship with veterans and service representatives are good and really valued, and there is a clear public appetite, in my opinion, particularly from families and young people, for a more engaging and interactive way to connect with our armed forces and emergency services. The proposals before you reflect and respond to that reality directly. They set out a refreshed delivery model for 2026, alongside a clear strategic direction through to 2028, which I know is ambitious. But it aligns with our Town Council strategy and our recently adopted Armed Forces Covenant. Importantly, this moves beyond a single day and recognises that supporting the armed forces community is a year-round responsibility. So, for 2026, the proposals retain a strong civic ceremonial core. At the same time, they introduce the opportunities to increase participation and visibility, such as repositioning the sunset ceremony as a signature evening event, expanding cadet and youth involvement, and strengthening veterans' wellbeing and support offers, as well as creating a more interactive armed forces, emergency services and community engagement zones. So we've got a clear ambition looking ahead. 2026 is about refresh and reset. 2027 is about expansion and a regional profile. And we hope by 2028 that Weston-super-Mare will be hosting one of the leading armed forces and emergency services events in the southwest, fully grounded in community partnership and hopefully financial sustainability. So as Armed Forces champion, I believe these proposals strengthen our commitment. They honour Weston's proud history while ensuring that we remain relevant to today's service community and future generations. So I really hope members will approve the revised delivery model for 2026 and endorse our longer-term strategic direction and authorise officers to proceed with the detailed planning outlined. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item? No? Oh, Councillor Moore.
I was just interested
Use your microphone.
I was just interested as to why it takes us 3 years to get there. I'm always very impatient.
answer that one, although I could make a stab at it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the honest answer to that is that it's a big project. So we've already got a fabulous event. The background of the event is great. We need to freshen it up. I think for this year particularly, it's already the middle of January, so we want to make some significant changes to the event, but we have to be mindful of the fact that it's a small team and only 3 or 4 months before we've really got it in a position to confirm it. I think the other significant change is that obviously, whilst we've had a nice budget for the event and we get a grant from the Armed Forces, over the last 3 or 4 years the cost of everything's gone up. We are going to have to look at a slightly different model. It's always been felt in the past that the event should be completely free and realistically nobody should make any money. It's not sustainable to carry on that way. We want to keep it free, but we're going to have to introduce some element of commercial to the event to bring in the funding that's needed to grow it. That is going to take a couple of years to get confidence from people to realise that there are opportunities there, and hopefully that will allow the event to be more sustainable moving forward.
Councillor Clayton?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm the complete opposite to Councillor Pepperell. Looking at the wish list that we've got here, and by the way, I'm in complete agreement that I do feel the Armed Forces Day does need rejuvenating, and it has become very stale. But my concern is that, you know, in 3 or 4 months' time, we're looking to put on this great big event that I've got written here before me with no costings in it whatsoever. I'm a bit curious to know where the money is coming from, because I believe we have a budget of £9,000 each year, and looking at this list, I don't feel it's achievable, and I'm a little bit worried how it's going to look on us as a town council when we fail to achieve all this. Also, we've got here include flying past and beach landing. Well, I was at the Armed Forces Day last year. I was helping out with the event, and it was a steaming hot day. So, you know, the beach will be busy. I mean, unless, correct me if I'm wrong, is it a mock patrol plane that's flying over and landing on the beach? Because if it's going to be a full military plane, I just cannot see that happening at all.
Just a quick one in answer to the thing, just to be clear, the appendix in the back, which is the suggestion, was a brainstorming session with one of our sons at DLs. It's not a definitive list of what we're going to do. That's in pages 6 and 7, just in case.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but why is a brainstorming list coming to full council for recommendation? I'd rather see a brainstorming list being done by officers behind the scene and a definitive list of what they want coming to full council.
So section 6 and 7 should be the official proposal. Okay, any other questions? Oh, Councillor Cole.
Sorry, I'm slightly of the same opinion as James. I'm a little bit unsure as to what the proposal is. I know there's bits of information there, but what is the parade going? Is that staying? It seems like we're just adding a winter guard. I'm really unsure as to what the detail is.
I think just to echo those comments, there's obviously a wish list of where we'd like to be in 3 years. For this year, the intention is to deliver a slightly better event. There's some basics missing from the event. It's not particularly family orientated at the moment, despite the fact that a vast majority of the people visiting our families. So we're going to look to introduce maybe somewhere along the lines of fun fair rides and other things to keep people on the site for longer, and just give them a better offer. I think, I echo those comments. Like I said, there's lots of things that we'd like to do over the 3 years, but let's be realistic with where we are this year. Most of the things planned in this year will come under the existing budget. We're not looking to ask for any more money from the budget this year or from the MOD, but just to re-echo my comments, we're looking to make some money from the commercial sector that want to be involved in the event. That will allow us to take on board some of the other things that we're looking to achieve.
Just for clarification for everybody, in the papers, it's 6.2 event components down to just above item 7 long-term aspirations. That's what we were being asked to recommend today.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I completely understand what you're saying, and sort of coming in But am I reading this right, that 6.2 down to 7 is what the council was looking to achieve this year?
No, it says year one.
Well, I'm getting lots over there and you're saying no.
As far as I'm aware, 6.2 down to number so is what the proposal is for year one, so to the main proposal, and then obviously there's future plans that need to be worked up for aspirations for future years.
Yeah, I think I back my comments that I'm a little bit concerned. And please don't take this as me being as criticising. I know a lot of you do hard work in relation to this, and absolutely fair play to you for the hard work you put in. And I'm just as much as anyone else wants to see this improvement, but I'm just a little worried about the list that's being put before us for this year with, what, 5 months to go? And especially the beach landing, I still haven't had an answer in relation to that, because that does raise concerns on how we're going to land an aeroplane on a beach when potentially it's going to be a hot summer's day.
That's not in the proposals on that one.
I think just a clarification there. I think my understanding is that there's been an approach from a pilot who has displayed previously, and one of his suggestions was that he could actually land a plane on the beach. I think the reality is that's extremely unlikely. We'd obviously have to talk to partners at North Somerset around that, but I just don't think that's possible. What the Deputy Lieutenant is suggesting is some opportunities for us to explore other options within the armed forces that we haven't had before. In relation to Councillor Colescott mentioned, the parade will be maintained, the sunset event will be maintained, albeit in a slightly different format on the Friday evening, but the main crux of the events aren't changing at all. We're just trying to introduce more stuff to keep dwell time longer, to make the day more pleasurable.
Just a small point which might amuse you. Weston-super-Mare aerodrome, before it was built where it was in 1937, actually existed on the sands. So there is precedence for planes landing and taking off, though I suspect the health and safety requirements in the 1920s were a little less substantial than they are nowadays.
Okay, any more debate? Councillor Thornton.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering if we ought to slightly change what we're going to vote on then, as we've got some concerns about, quite rightly, Gemma. And I'm assuming we're voting on number 11, which is the officer recommendation. And I'm wondering if we ought to just remove the first one, because that's actually saying the delivery model for 2026, and that way we won't be committing ourselves to expending huge amounts of money on trying to get a plane to land or whatever, and then just continue with the others, which is about the aspirations for this event. Just a thought.
So I think fundamentally tonight we need an approval that there is a willingness for us to change the model slightly. In relation to the budget, the Town Council puts in £9,000, that is in your budget. You will be, or maybe not, approving later if you decide not to, so we'll know with that. With regard to the MOD funding, that application has gone in. We won't know about it, but the event, your remit to us has always been, the event has to stay within the money that is available to us. It can't exceed, so if we don't get any MOD funding, the event is a £9,000 event. If we do get MOD funding, then it can be up to the value of that event, and that has always been the case since we started this process.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So, do we know how much we've asked for from the MOD?
We don't actually ask for a figure. They set the figure to us, but in the last couple of years it's been in the region of 4,500 to 5,000.
Okay. See, I've got a real issue with supporting this recommendation, not because it's anything. I want to see Armed Forces Day be a success. Please believe me. But my problem I've got here is that this has now gone public, and what I'm worried about is if we agree these recommendations, and that could become the expectation for Armed Forces Day, and it's clear from this room that we can't get any guarantees that that's deliverable, and I'm just worried about the representation of the town council in promising a lot of stuff. I'd like to have seen it staggered over the 3 years, perhaps, to introduce a lot of this stuff. And believe me, I want the day to be a success. I want it to be bigger, better than ever. But obviously, I want that process to be stable in doing so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, what can I say really? A long time ago when I was mayor, I volunteered just to help out the committee, about 9 years ago now. And to be fair, looking back, we were very, very fortunate in our Forces Day because it coincided with the Air Festival. So we had loads and loads of football. Back in those days, in the early days, we had the Royal Marine Corps Command who came along for, I would say, 3 or 4 years, and they did unarmed combat. They did loads of stuff, and over the years, that committee, who were the hardcore, who kept it going for all those years, over the years, it probably got a bit older, and yes, it has got a bit stagnated. It made it worse, of course, because we're now having to stand alone. So last year was our first, I think, real test of standing alone, and it'll always be a hard struggle, but I do recommend this, taking this on board. It is a refresh, and I know what you're saying, James, about the money, but if we break it down to simple terms, all we're doing really this year is trying to make it better than last year, and we can build on it. And all the resources that are available will take time, because the world's moved on since I began helping out the Armed Forces Committee. 40 commanders now are bogged down in loads of operations. So gone are the days where you could say, oh, could you send a few soldiers down, it's not as easy anymore. But I do welcome this. It does need a refresh. I'm in two minds whether to call it a day myself, volunteering. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great thing to take on board, and it would be a shame to see it disappear. So that's all I'm going to say. It's a good refresh, fresh set of eyes on it, and let's do it. And the other 2 years will be, well, let's see how it goes. But if we don't give it a really good go, and we've got the money, it's in the budget again, we've survived before on it, that's what I'm going to say is I wish to see it go.
Councillor Crawford.
I think we're getting bogged down in the trenches on this one. If you look at item 1, the purpose of the report, the second part of it is to approve the refreshed delivery model for this year, fine, and then it's to endorse a longer-term strategic direction. Well, that wording strikes me as being quite clear. It's a direction in which we're hoping to travel. It is not a commitment at this point. You may shake your head, Councillor, but I'm not mine. We are being asked to endorse this strategic direction, and I find that wording quite easy to understand, and we'll vote accordingly for it.
Last one, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry. I completely disagree with what Councillor Crockford just said. We've just had it confirmed that that wish list is what is being looked to achieve in the first year. No. But I asked that question and you said yes.
Sorry, Councillor, I said the wish list was for your information long term, and item 6.2 was the direction for this year.
Yeah. 6.2 down to 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue that I've got. I don't feel it's deliverable this year, that's what I'm saying.
I guess we move to the vote. Can I have a proposal, please? A seconder.
I need up to 10 standing orders. Sorry to be that. Sorry to be that unpaid.
I need to understand standing orders. Are we happy with that? Yes. Can I have some proposal, please? Seconder. Mr. Colgate. All those in favour? Okay. All those against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's approved. Okay. James, Darren, you are welcome, free to go. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 6, and that is Inspector Decoder. With you.
Evening, everyone. Apologies for my unprofessional dress. I've been training all day, and I've got a meeting after this, but I will endeavour to dress accordingly next time. I've tried to put together something akin to the last meeting. It is going to change and try as we go along, but I'm hoping this year, no matter what, and this time was a bit of a challenge because of some absence, but no matter what, I'll keep this going, and just please keep telling me if it's appropriate. Just wanted to start. So it's been a couple of months, isn't it? 2 months, yeah. So I have done 3 months figures, and some of that will overlap. However, in that time, there have been a few developments within the town, not just within the team, but also within some of the approaches that the team take. But the first thing I wanted to cover for you, I'm also aware there's been some questions submitted, and that is within this as well. First one is just around staffing. I did talk about the new chief inspector that's previously, he's in post. Others, my counterpart for Whirl, Villages and the Northern Sector, Inspector Matt Hawkins, is leaving us at the end of, he actually leaves in May, but he's got some time owed, so he's leaving in February time. And we have a new inspector, Inspector Paul Chaplin, who will be starting with us. He's going to be starting a couple of weeks ahead of that departure, so not long at all till he starts, and there'll be a proper handover for him. He's going to be responsible from a Western perspective for Whirl and the Villages, although, as always, if you want to contact me about anything between us, we'll work everything out. We have a couple of PCs leaving us. Tim Stride, who is in the Whirl team, who is an exceptional officer. I'm sad for Weston, but pleased for him as he is. So he's leaving on promotion. He is going to be leaving North Somerset. And Debbie Chamberlain, who's part of the town centre team, is going to be leaving us at the end of February as well. But we are getting a new starter, Anna, who's going to be joining us in February for the town centre team. And we have a recruitment process that literally is towards its final stages. Interviews are taking, if not have taken place. And we have no doubt a number of those people who will be coming from that. And to be fair, I'll show you below that that's going to be a very welcome time for us. PCSOs, we've got new PCSOs in the town centre team and the Bourneville. We've got another one starting in the town centre team in about a month. And we've got Lily in Whirl as well. So in terms of PCSOs, we are looking really healthy across Western. Just for Western, not North Somerset, although we're responsible for North Somerset, this is just for the Western relevant beats. We have currently we are navigating choppy waters with PCs at the moment, but we'll show you in slides to come that we are still doing some decent work despite the absences. But we are currently running at 8 out of 18 police officers as beat managers. Now that isn't police coverage, that's just for neighbourhood teams. We still have patrol teams, we still have all the support teams, so there is a significant policing presence. But in terms of your allocated neighbourhood officers and the people that you would be contacting about ongoing issues, we have some gaps to fill. PCSOs, there are no vacancies, so we have 100% in terms of coverage. We have one on maternity, but other than that, we are completely full in terms of PCSOs. Recruitment is expecting, we're thinking of the amount we are expecting to take 66%, and then we are looking at attachments and other ways to try and fill that completely. So we are expecting, the point being, we are in a challenging point right now. We have been for a little while. However, we are expecting, I would suggest, the first half of this year to rapidly change that picture for neighbourhoods across Western. We've also put an extra support for the town centre team with an acting police sergeant, in addition to Joe Pittman to support some of the work that I'm going to be talking to you about and support the team in terms of some of the work that's taken place. I did some stats, I did 2 pages of stats last time. I thought that was a bit much. And I'm not too sure how interesting this is or whether this is relevant to you. Please let me know. But again, I've just tried to do a single page this time of the Western relevant beats, not including the villages. If you want me to include the villages, I can. I've tried this. I talked to you previously. I don't do the stats the way you probably get them off Police UK, because you can get those off Police UK. I do a 3 month, so the tactical period, as we would call it, 3 months now compared to the 3 months previously. And I'm also putting it to the beat codes, so the areas that are relevant to Western as a town, and then I also do the town centre. So again, welcome the feedback if you think that's not the way to go, but I'm trying to do stuff that's relevant, specific to this meeting, in a context that has a time frame that's relevant to the last time I talked to you against the year before. It's still binary comparison, so it's not something you should go, this is cast iron in the direction or anything, but year on year rather than 12 months to 12 months, it's tactical to tactical, so 3 months to now. You'll see across Western, crime is fairly steady. You know, I could say, well, the town's reduced, although Western's are 2% is so 1.4% total crime. It is relevant, you know, it's fairly steady. It's a shame Councillor Canford isn't here, because I'm sure he would, again, be amused by the shoplifting stats. However, last time I said there will be a reason for that. I think we've established that. So, for example, last week we arrested, charged, remanded prolific shoplifter in Weston for 34 offences. However, 17 of those offences on this stats was one crime. So the way in which the Home Office changed recording of shoplifting is if a store reports 17 instances in one online report, that will count as one incident. That is out of our, that is national crime recording standards, so completely out of our control. However, when I did say, you know, I don't want to just, I said last time, I don't want to just claim the win, there'll be a reason for this, it won't be, that is without doubt the reason. And when you look at that within the context of the town centre team, I'll talk about the work we've been doing, we have been pushing to find, to record, to increase the amount of recording. For those in the town, hopefully you'll see we've got a sergeant who is absolutely relentless at trying to target and deal with criminality in the town, and even with that we are 18% down on paper in terms of shoplifting. So I don't think necessarily, I think that I'll show the control and what we're doing around defending in the town is better. I think that the overall picture for us in terms of policing, given the resource challenges we've got, which is going to improve, is better. However, I don't think we are 18% down necessarily. I think we have a situation where we are bringing more people to court, which for me is a real positive. I'll talk about later. You can see that I won't go line by line, but drugs offences, we are down in the town, but up overall. I've said in many cases, we've got the neighbourhood task team who have been doing some work in other parts of Weston, and they will be stop searching people and finding drugs offences. Where those drugs offences are possession with intent to supply, that is a sign of potential positivity in there as well. So those figures, the context is really key. My big concern is around the way we are looking at robberies at the moment. There have been instances where we have had some issues of items being taken with assaults involved, and some of those have been classified as robberies. There's an increase there. We are looking at that. In the town, you could say the numbers are low, however, they are significant in terms of any issues of that in the town is significant for us in terms of the town centre. But across Weston we have increases that we're going to pay some attention and look at. We have operations ongoing and the neighbourhood tasking team who will keep targeting some of these issues and the areas that we're looking at. The other issue for me is the significant reduction in hate crime. In the context of we have probably over the course of the last 12 months had an increase in what I would consider to be community tension issues, and whether or not that results in an increase in hate crime or not, I don't know, I can say, but I certainly wouldn't say that there's a 77% reduction in hate crime. So that's an area that we're really aware of, and we're trying to work with any group that wants to work with us on listening to communities and trying to make sure that we understand what it's really like in the town if there are issues that need to be addressed. So just for your reassurance, where there are big reductions, we're not going, TML time, let's chill out. Actually, we are going, why is that? Is there a problem here? What is it really like? And we're trying to talk to, we're working with, for example, REMS to go, is this the picture that you're seeing? We want to work, so Sari do work with the North Somerset, we're absolutely committed to working with them as well. So what is the picture like out there? If there are people who want to talk to us about things, we're ready to listen. So I'm not saying that it's not necessarily reduced, it could be with everyone. What I'm saying is, I feel like that gives me questions, not answers, so we're asking those questions to try and get the right one. I won't harp on too much. If there's anything particularly you want to talk about there, we can, but this is just our figures across the board for key offence strands. So other offence strands you want, I can add those as we go along. But what I do want to talk about is activity, because that's the importance of what are we doing to address criminality and issues in Weston. Since the 9th of December, since the last meeting, we have had an operation called Op-Anomic. This is very much the baby of our relatively recent sergeant in post, Joe Pickman, who is an exceptional sergeant. He is somebody who I personally can relate to professionally, because he likes to work the way I like to work, and that's not saying that's the best way, but actually be really proactive, look at criminality, deal with criminality, support people that want support, but actually they get their chance. If they don't take that chance, then we will police until such time as they want off the wagon. So for any people we're dealing with, if they want off the wagon, for want of a better expression, if they want off the criminal justice ride, we will put equal amounts of effort into supporting them. But if they don't, then they will deal with the policing side of being in the town if they are committed to criminality. And this is all about that. This is there's another operation that we've had during Christmas called Operation Blitz. That's a visibility operation. So that was increasing every day the amount of officers that are in the town. So we've had officers from across North Somerset, we've had overtime officers from patrol and other areas coming in to increase the amount of time every day in the town. But Operation Anomic were proactive days where we have funded officers to target criminality. It's 4 days that have taken place since the 9th of December that resulted in 12 arrests. As I said, the last offender that we had attributed to Anomic was just in one offender, was 34 offences and led to 50 weeks in prison. We had 8 dispersals, 18 intelligence reports, and when we talk about 18 intelligence reports, that is meaningful conversations with people that has led us into criminal sort of areas of investigation, whether that be for drugs, for trafficking, for issues around businesses, or anything like that. So 12 stop searches, 126 extra officer hours over the 4 days. We've had 2 individuals that we've taken from really tricky positions and put them into support. We've had 3 summons that we've issued for offences. Just 2 PCSOs seized around £2,000 of stolen goods. We've had £2,500 of stolen goods seized, in addition to a significant amount of alcohol seized. And then community protection warnings, notices, and criminal behaviour order off the back of actions here. Over 4 days, at effectively 44% capacity, there is a significant commitment to trying to police real issues. Sorry, are you sure? And the only thing on the back of this is the future of the operation. So this was funded in terms of I was committing to overtime for that. I've had the question asked me from a very enthusiastic Sergeant Pittman, I want this to keep going. We are committed to doing that. We will have to look at how this is sustainable ongoing, but one thing that is not in question is that this will continue to occur. We will continue with these dates. Whilst we are in this financial resourcing situation, I've committed to funding that through overtime of officers and people who want to come and bolster the town centre team. As that resourcing picture improves, hopefully into the next funding year, because then I can put it all to this funding year. As that resourcing situation improves, we will lessen the need to bring external people out, and we will look at the town centre team and other neighbourhood teams supporting this, along with patrol officers that are really interested. But the future of this operation is we will continue with regular. We will change the method because there are predictabilities within the method that we're using, but we are going to look at continued action, continued pressure on the town for people that want to engage in criminality. That said, what I would like, aspirationally, whether this is achievable or not, is probably for the people into support and things that will get them off the offending pathway, those numbers to be swapped with the offenders that we are remanding and sending into custody and sending into prison. Of those 12 arrests, 10 of them were arrests charged of remand. I talked about that last time, that arrest, but actually they were on the day dealt with and placed into custody for the court then to make a decision on where they go. But I'd like those figures ideally to at least balance out, if not swap. That said, that is the decision of the people that we are dealing with, not us. Our commitment is to continue to apply that pressure. Any question on the nomic before I move on?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as councillors, we all have an interest in our town centre as it's the beacon of the town. But especially obviously the ward members across from me would have special attention to it. It's been no secret that, you know, for the past few years our town centre has been blighted by ASB, street drinking, etc. And my view of it working in the town centre is that, you know, previous sergeants of the town centre team have been very weak. I'm pleased to say that Sergeant Pittman has been a breath of fresh air, and someone that works in the town centre, as you all know, as a street warden. I've had the privilege of sitting in on the Operation Economic briefings, and I can tell you firsthand that it is a very slick operation, and Sergeant Pittman is absolutely clued up on what he is doing, and it's had a real positive effect on the town centre. Like Inspector Kozak has said, it's been 4 weeks in, and so far we have seen a big decrease in relation to antisocial behaviour and street drinking, which is having a positive effect on the economy and people visiting our town. So I'd like to congratulate Sergeant Pittman and yourself, Inspector Kozak, and long may it continue. I just hope and pray that obviously when the summer months come that we are able to sort of continue this pressure as, you know, visitors come flooding into the town.
It's fantastic to hear, and I certainly would echo in terms of Joe and the work he's doing. It's a commitment to us to keep that going, absolutely. There will be summer challenges. We are testing this model at a time, it's probably one of the easiest times to test it, but we will, and having the neighbour tasking team there as well helps us we're in a better position than we've been in a long time to try and keep this pressure going. So no, we certainly are committing to keeping that pressure.
Councillor Gillens?
Thank you. Yeah, congratulations on that. I don't have the same insight as Councillor Clayton does. My question's a bit duller, I think. Going back to the stats that you shared, I was really interested in that point you made about 17 incidents of a crime being reported as only one, and I think you were saying that about shop thefts. Yeah?
That's correct, yeah.
Is that kind of reporting model, does that apply to all the other areas as well, other statistics?
I think it does, but we don't really have bulk reports in the way that you get bulk reports of shoplifting. You know, if you're, and I genuinely don't mean this facetiously, but if you're burgled once, you won't get somebody saying that I've been burgled a lot of times, or if you're robbed, it would tend to be. So we won't normally get bulk reports in the way that, so it is a fairly unique crime in that sense. If we had a bulk report of harassment, which might be, I suppose, the other, actually that would be recorded prior to this anyway as one course of conduct. Multiple incidences that would be a course of conduct, so that would have been one incident anyway. So that's probably the only other offence that would come to mind where this would be relevant, but that isn't a change, that's always been the case.
Yeah, it was around sort of harassment and by extension hate crime, but I was wondering whether if a group of people are subject to harassment and hate crime, that's reported as one crime.
No, so if there were different victims, then each victim would have their own crime. We wouldn't have a bulk of victims. We could have a bulk of suspects within one crime, but we wouldn't have a bulk. That's a horrible way to term that. But you know what I mean? There wouldn't be many victims just to put within one crime.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Councillor
Could we go back to the statistics? Thank you. Because I think if we had more time, we would probably all want to drill down a bit further into this and then come back to you with questions. I assume all of those on there are crimes which are reported. Do you record the number of those which then you determine to be non-crimes? They have been reported, and therefore you've recorded them as crimes, but there are going to be instances of people reporting crimes which actually don't materialise in your professional view to be crimes.
Yeah, so it's quite a rigorous standard for us to get something no crime. There will be instances where we think the incident may not have occurred, or but that by virtue of the way it's been reported, it will remain a crime. There's something called, there's an outcome classification that normally would go on the finalisation of any crime. We could look at how things are classified when filed that would give us an indication of that. The other thing, in terms of drilling down to these offences, context is absolutely key. And this goes back to when I used to talk to Barrow and Bourneville and give accounts of figures around public order, and I'd go, asking the questions around the stats is probably the most important thing. These will never give you answers, they only give you questions. So public order, for example, will cover everything from some instances in the home that would have no relevance to public risk at all, through to somebody in the street shouting at random strangers, which would. So understanding where the stats are really relevant is really important.
Because the problem then occurs, does it not, in the public perception of crime and danger. You deal with something in the house which is a crime, will be very worrying for the people in that household. Meanwhile, the neighbours haven't a clue what's going on and don't see it as a crime, but it adds to the statistics and gives that increasing feeling that we live in an era of criminality.
Yeah.
We know the statistics do not support that concept. Try telling the Facebook people that actually the world is not imploding, that Britain hasn't gone to the dogs, and they don't believe you and don't want to believe you. I'm also interested in the multiple offences committed by individuals, because I think on quite a lot of those figures, and I don't know because I've not had an opportunity to go through them, there will be a number which are the result of specific individuals committing multiple crimes.
Yeah. So our highest frequency offenders become effectively our target lists. And for example, in the town centre, part of Operation Anomic that I was gone to is that we have a top. We started as a top 5, there's a top 6, and we've really got a top 6 with a reserve list. So we've almost got a team of we have target lists of highest frequency concerning offenders. It'll be the same for shoplifting, for example. The top shoplifting offenders will form part of the Anomic target list, but we will also look at any high frequency offender for any offence that causes us concern through other, just from day-to-day work anyway. So if we've got something called CLIP, it's a great data analytics tool. Again, just gives us lots of questions, but that will bring up any suspect that's and how many crimes they are associated to. So we can put up lists to go in North Somerset, here are our highest frequency offenders, and then we can drill that down to what type of offence, or total offending, or who's our highest shoplifter through to who is our most frequent person attached to burglaries.
Yeah. And if I could just finish, the one figure from everything you've given us so far, which I find really worrying, is that you're only expecting to reach a 66% occupation of your officers.
Yeah,
that is worrying.
I'd qualify that with over 10% of the unavoidable absences that are going to continue. We've got no control over at least 10% of that. And by virtue of the fact the recruitment phase is likely to only get us an extra 4 beat managers at any one time. However, I qualified that with saying we are looking at approaches to fill those. So we don't see necessarily having a couple of vacancies, for example, in the town centre team as a negative, because I'm talking to Joe, and Joe's very keen to bring in members of other teams, for example, patrol, on short-term attachments to generate interest in the activity that we're doing in the town. And we would need vacancies to be able to do that. So to some extent, our strategy for the town centre team, for example, is potentially to hold a vacancy but fill that temporarily, constantly on rotation. It's the way we used to do it a long time ago, and I'm quite a fan of that model because it gets exposure to the sort of work we're doing in Anomic and other things much wider across the organisation, so when recruitment phases come in, we get a lot more people applying.
Councillor Thornton.
Thanks. I'm interested in what you had to say about hate crime, and I saw that immediately, that it's falling, and it really surprised me given the year that we've had in Weston-super-Mare with the town of Sanctuary, etc. And I just want to, I'm sure you have considered this and you're thinking about how you're going to do something to get people to feel more able to report it, because I'm sure that's probably the issue. My worry is, you see, with something, I know hate crime isn't just racism, but with racism in particular, I think we've got to a stage in our society, not just here in Weston, but across the UK, where it's sort of become normalised because of the anti-immigrant talk that's coming out, from the government and other political parties. And my worry is that, people don't report it because they don't think it will be taken seriously. They don't think, no offence to the police, that anything will be done about it. So for me, it's really about how we actually encourage people to report it, to reassure them that it will be taken seriously, something will be done about it, and there will be no reprisals to them as well. I think that's crucial. But
yeah, absolutely, completely agree. What we are missing from these stats, I tried to find, but I just haven't had enough time today to be able to try and find, is hate incidents. So although these are criminal offences that are tagged with either racially, religiously, disability related, any of the hate sort of flags that would be ticked, any criminal offence that's had that tick, that is not a true reflection of the hate-related calls that we've had. I'll give you an example. We had a report of a supermarket incident where there was quite apparently, outside of a supermarket, somebody was experienced an incident that meant that they were treated differently by virtue of their ethnicity. But the actual incident, although deemed by the people reporting to be racist, wasn't a criminal offence. It was an incident of a really challenging incident. It wasn't an offence. That would be a hate incident, but it wasn't a hate crime, so we wouldn't come up on those figures. And we do have a number of those across Weston. In terms of the work around understanding that and trying to make people feel comfortable and listening, we're trying to show that by virtue of, for example, me being the person in the room. So this isn't a situation where we are trying to do a beach surgery here, a beach surgery there, and hoping that things improve. I'm trying to go to the people who can help us understand that and saying, look, I don't have the answer to the question, but I'm willing to sit in a room with whoever you think are the best people to sit in a room with, and I'll listen to what the problems are. And if we can work out how to improve how we get that information, I'll try and add my bit, but otherwise I'll just listen to what you think we should be doing. And at the minute, at this stage, sort of that's the best offer I've got, to be able to say I can offer my ear, and I can offer sort of like my insight into our organisation, and if I can create a link there that improves what we understand about what's going on in Weston, if indeed we have a massive difference between what's reported and what's going on, which the suggestion to me is that we do, then we'll hopefully understand that by spending time doing those relationships. So hopefully that answers what you're asking.
Okay, can I just ask you to finish this presentation, and then I'll come to Councillor Bailey and then Councillor Harrison-Moore. Just conscious we've got your time to go on.
Sorry, I've ran so we've got over that. Other issues of note, this is just for January. I thought it'd be interesting just to show you quite a few people on leave until the first week of January, so this has been a week and a half, 2 weeks. A number of prolific offenders, a number of male people arrested. I know they all say male, they were all male. That's not by design. I'm sure there was a female rest of it, but these are all those. So we've looked at a lot of prolific offenders, a lot of people you see with 4 offences, 5 offences, but we are identifying those people that are causing harm and we are going after them. This is not North Somerset as a whole, this is just the neighbourhood team and the neighbourhood tasking team that are targeting those people that cause it. So there will be a lot more if we included the massive contribution of patrol and other teams around that. Just thrown in there as well, because the World PCSO supervisor wanted to make a point of it. Actually, we're dealing with other community issues as well. There's a road safety issue in Qstoke where there are some issues caused by tractors around weight restricted roads. They're having some challenges there and dealing with that, but they are spending time trying to make sure that safety issues that are causing concern for communities, that we're spending that time to try and deal with them, and they're working quite hard on trying to address that issue. We had some questions and answers, Castle Baptist Priory School incidents. The officers spent quite a bit of time around, certainly the lane around Baptist Priory School. There were some concerns, I know from a resident there, that we were really concerned about drug dealing and issues around there. Although that initial thing, there were bags and stuff found on that initial visit, there's been a lot of presence there and a lot of visits since, and a lot of sort of trying to find. So there has been since then no evidence of drug dealing activity in that lane. They are aware. Castle Baptist has been an ongoing backwards and forwards issue there. It is not at the moment, from this latest sort of period, considered by us to be an antisocial behaviour hotspot. It is not somewhere where we've had a lot of incidents recently, so if that is different to what you're experiencing, please let me know. The St George Cross vandalism, hate crime issues throughout. If we have graffiti recorded, we do record it as a criminal damage offence. We will tag it as a hate crime if anyone, including the person they're reporting to for our organisation, deems it to be a hate crime. And we will, if there are lines of inquiry, we do investigate those lines of inquiry based on being criminal damage. Again, I don't want to tempt fate, but we have seen a change in the landscape of that picture in recent months. So in terms of this last tactical period, it hasn't been an issue that's featured on our community safety discussions. I had a question about the area behind Asda and our KFC area. Again, the assaults that took place there that we are aware of, that we've been investigating. The worst ones were in the summer, and there's been some issues since, but the Bournemouth team and the World team, it's like on the border of them. They've both been patrolling and looking at that. They have said that, again, in recent months, they have not had the issues that they had in the summer going through to late autumn. So I don't know if again, I know I'm saying these seem to be older issues, but if you're telling me there's stuff going on there that my team should be aware of that they're not, I'd be really interested in knowing about that. I've talked about shoplifting in supermarkets and so that hopefully with Anomic, and we're looking at with Anomic, looking at wider than just the town centre as well, but hopefully that was covered in my previous along visibility in the town centre. Operation Blitz was a Christmas operation for increased visibility, but we are now putting that into Operation Anomic so that we have other officers filling the gaps when the town centre team will officer that there's a regular presence. That's in addition to something called Uphaven, it's a Home Office funded project that has officers regularly patrolling the town centre. I didn't understand this question, really sorry if it's obvious, and my head's just not working, but it was quite a long day today. So, activism awareness on reporting crime. I didn't understand the question. I don't know if anyone...
I think that one's from you, Councillor Thornton.
No problem. We can look at it after this. If I need to come back to you, I will come back to you. And the presentation on safety, we can arrange that at a time, at a date that suits you if you want to separate to this or at a future meeting. So that's it for me.
Councillor, question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a concern. You say about the number of vacancies at PCs, and I was horrified to understand that the Met Police had recently said that they were not fully vetting officers, have not been in the past. Can you assure me that when you employ officers, select officers, that they're fully vetted?
Yeah, so we don't select new people coming into the organisation. These are already established officers that went through the vetting process. So when we talk about the recruitment process for beat managers, effectively we are poaching from other teams. We put an advert internally in the organisation and people normally from patrol, if I'm honest, occasionally from investigations, will apply for that job and transfer across from the department they're in into neighbourhoods. So they're not new officers, they are fully vetted existing officers.
Why is that? Why just robbing Peter to pay Paul this way?
Well, because that process is separate to the recruitment process. So the officers are coming, there is a pathway direct to neighbourhoods. That's normally PCSO to neighbourhood officer. However, the standard route into policing is you enter patrol, you do your PCDA course, so your degree course effectively, there are other ways to get in. You will do effectively 3 years on patrol. You might get a year placement as part of that, but then you can apply for other roles. So it's just a way of recruitment, or same for most other departments outside of patrol for.
But you can say they're fully vetted.
Yes, in terms of our officers that come through, go through the vetting process, and then there's a renewal of that vetting. In terms of where we are with that, I would have to go back and tell you precise, but I can certainly tell you to come in, they are fully vetted, and that vetting goes through a cycle. One of my officers in my team, fun enough, was talking about having to resubmit information because their vetting is going through the renewal process.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison Walls.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to double check something on the data. Am I right in saying that that data is a snapshot between the period of 28th of August to the 22nd of November?
No, so it's the 20th of October to the 19th of January. Sorry if I didn't change one of the top margin of it. On one of them I did change it, I might not have on both. But the 20th of October to the 19th of January.
Okay, so that's just that period?
Yes.
And then you give us the year on year. My feedback would be that it would be useful for us if we could have some kind of direction of travel. So if there could be a line graph, if you like, with each of those points on it over the last few years, and we can see where it's going, because that's just a snapshot of this year versus last year, and that doesn't take into account any kind of seasonal adjustments.
Absolutely.
So that would be more interesting to see a trend line.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, last question, Councillor Chard.
I'm interested to find out what your definition of hate crime is. You mentioned an incident that someone dealt with recently, with verbal aggression. Does that not count as a hate crime?
So if it's a public order offence, it would be. This particular incident, without going into too much detail, was a staff member who believed that they'd stolen something and had asked them to come back into the store and search their bag. But the manner that they did it was impolite, and the store looked to remedy that, but it was still reported to us because of the nature of the contact. It wasn't a right situation that the organisation was trying to deal with themselves, but that came on as a hate incident for us, not a hate crime.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks, Ian, that's been really helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 7, that's announcements for the town mayor. Just 14th of March, I stupidly agreed to do a 5k mud run, so if you fancy a laugh, come and watch me. On the 28th of March is the mayor's ball, so get your tickets now. Number 8, approve the calendar of minutes, the calendar of meetings or minutes for 26-27.
Mr. Mayor, just really quickly, traditionally mayor makings always do 2 words like this. I know it's spelled like that with this year's calendar, but just as an adjustment. Cheers.
Noted.
Yes, on page 17 at the bottom, start and finish group date. Devolution is shown as meeting on the 6th of May next year, which is a Thursday rather than a Wednesday, and by chance happens to be the date of the town council elections. And then immediately underneath that, Blue Plaques group, which meets on Tuesdays, is shown as meeting on the 20th of May next year, which is a Thursday. That happens to be our mayor making day.
We can revise those and make sure that they don't clash with any other dates, and then we'll come formally back to you in May.
Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Judy feels that one. Moving on. Item 9 to approve the town council budget and British Town requirement for 26-27.
actually been to all of the relevant meetings for discussion, and anything that's come out of those meetings has been added into the draft that you see in the papers today. Included within the budget have been things like the staff annual pay increases, the recognisation of the real living wage of £13.45 to increase on the 1st of April, and also CPI at 3.6% as of the October rate across the budget, where it has been applied to the relevant lines. You've got a supplementary paper there in front of you to support the budget. There was identification of an error figure that was picked up earlier today. It's changed the actual precept value, but it hasn't actually changed the direction that the budget was asked to go to deliver a 100% increase. So that supplementary paper is there describing that error. I think it's idea for you to have a look at with any questions that you might.
Any questions from anybody? No,
There's no questions, it's just, I'm just mindful of it's recorded and obviously most of the public, it's probably useful if you just outline broadly what the town council does in its budget, because you always get confusion between the two councils, so I'll be very quick. I know you all know it, and I hope you all know it, because why would you councils otherwise? But obviously this budget's fairly large, it's got things like the museum in it, Old Town Quarry, Milton Road Cemetery, the vacay. We've got over 23 pay areas, 22, seems to be more than 22. And obviously it still keeps the 5 town council toilets free, as well as grants for various charities and community events. Alongside that, the CCTV, funding of that and the community response, as well as the Visitor Information Centre, the website, Visit Weston, the water adventure play park, and things that people don't always realise, motorsports, impacts, allotments, and the community fridge, a lot more than that. So I just want to give that context, because I'm mindful if you're not familiar with Weston Town Council, those are the types of things that this budget covers. And just to make sure if Carol Waterman is watching, it's technically not 8% increase. I don't want Carol to tell me off.
Thank you. Any other comments on the budget, or should we vote? Should we propose, please?
I'm sorry, you need a proposed budget. Sorry.
Is it second? All those in favour? Yeah, well, that's done, thank you. Okay, we're on to number 10, which is to approve the final transfer of the Silica from North Somerset Council. Report from the Town Clerk.
Thank you. So this is, as the paper says, it's just authorisation to formally transfer the asset from North Somerset Council and sign or give permission for the signing of the statutory declaration, and 2 nominated councillors, which through the process have been the chair and vice chair of amenities, because that's where the slipper sits. So that is what we are asking you to approve.
Any comments? Have a proposer, please. That's how it was, second, and here's the vote. Favour? That's done, thank you. Enthusiasm was noted. Final item 12, to receive North Somerset Council's Community Governance Review, final recommendations on page 82. That's just for noting. So that's it. Done. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a safe trip.